Lando Norris is 2 races away from his first world title, and his biggest problem might now be wearing the same colour overalls. Because Oscar Piastri has just taken sprint pole in Qatar, Norris is only
P3.
And Max Verstappen? He's starting way back in P6 on a night he had to deliver. Let's be real for a second. This is not the grid Norris would have ordered if he wanted a stress-free route to the championship. Welcome back to CJR, and Qatar Sprint Qualifying is just wrapped up under the Lusail lights. This is the penultimate weekend of the season. Norris leads the championship on 390 points, with Piastri and Verstappen tied behind on 366. Every sprint point now is basically gold dust. So, how did we get here? McLaren have looked hooked up from the very first laps in practice. Piastri fastest, Norris just a few hundredths behind. That pace carried straight into the sprint quali, but here's where it gets interesting. Norris can technically win the title this weekend if he leaves Qatar 26 points clear. Piastri sticking it on pole means the guy most likely to steal those sprint points is his own teammate. If Oscar wins the sprint and Lando finishes behind him, that gap closes, and suddenly, instead of dropping Verstappen, Norris is fighting a 2-front war inside McLaren and against Red Bull. Now, let's talk about the other half of this title fight. Max Verstappen, the guy who dragged himself back into contention after that wild Vegas weekend, could only stick it 6th in sprint quali. We've already heard radio about the RB21 feeling sketchy, bouncing, weird behaviour, not giving Max the confidence he needs through those fast Qatar corners. In a normal season, P6 in a sprint isn't a disaster, but when you're 24 points down with 2 weekends left and both McLarens ahead of you on the grid, that's a nightmare, especially when only the top 8 score in the sprint. Max basically has to go full send at the start, or he's watching the title slip while staring at 2 orange cars disappearing into the distance. And we can't ignore the other big story. Lewis Hamilton out in SQ1 in the Ferrari. His first year at Ferrari has already been a slog, and getting knocked out that early in a sprint weekend just sums it up. No tyre advantage, no track position, and with Pirelli's 25-lap tyre limit for the race, strategy magic might not be enough to bail him out on Sunday either. For teams like Aston Martin and Williams though, this is huge. Every place gained in the sprint is extra leverage in that pack constructors fight behind the big 3. So what does this all actually mean? If the sprint roughly finishes in grid order, Piastri, Norris, then Verstappen, then Piastri claws points back on Norris, Verstappen limits the damage but doesn't close the gap enough, and the whole thing likely goes to an Abu Dhabi showdown with all 3 still mathematically alive. But if Norris finds a way past Oscar at the start, and Verstappen gets stuck in traffic or chooses tyres, that's where the title might effectively be decided before Sunday's lights out. Here's the real question for McLaren. Do you let them race completely free and risk them tripping over each other? Or do you even think about team orders with the first driver's title on the line? Alright, I want your take on this. Drop your Qatar sprint prediction in the comments. Who wins the sprint? And does Norris leave Qatar with one hand on the trophy? Or does Piastri blow this title fight wide open? If you like these instant breakdowns right after quali, hit like, subscribe to CJR, and I'll see you straight after the sprint for the next debrief.